On a ship they sailed away from the grayness of their land to a place they never knew, to the horror and the sand. Chains that bind their hearts and minds, shackles heavy on their feet. Dreams dissolve in burning eyes underneath the scorching heat. Oh, the sorrow cries in pain, far from home they'll never see. Ghosts of memories remain in the harsh land by the sea. Tears and blood mix in the ground, freedom just a distant dream. Every sound a morning sound, every day a silent scream. Lonely stars would never hear whispers of their distant plea. Strangers in a world of fear cry for lives they'll never be. Oh, the sorrow cries in pain, far from home they'll never see. Ghosts of memories remain in the harsh land by the sea.
Hello and welcome to the Convict Diaries. While not exactly from convict times, a look at our amazing bush poets is important. Australian literature encompasses the works produced within the Commonwealth of Australia and its preceding colonies. During its early Western history, Australia consisted of British colonies, and its literary tradition initially aligned with English literature. However, since 1788, Australian writers have introduced the unique character of the continent into their narratives, exploring themes such as Aboriginal identity, mateship, egalitarianism, democracy, national identity, migration, urban life, and the awe-inspiring yet harsh nature of the Australian bush. Notable figures in classic Australian literature include poets Henry Lawson, Banjo Paterson, C.J. Dennis, and Dorothea Mackellar. Dennis captured the Australian vernacular, while Mackellar penned the iconic patriotic poem
My Country, a poem written by Dorothea Mackellar at the age of 19 about her love of the Australian landscape. The poem was first published in The Spectator in London on the 5th of September, 1908 under the
Lawson
title
and
Core
Paterson
of My
famously
Heart.
clashed in the Bulletin debate over Australian life, with Lawson offering a more realist and gritty portrayal of the bush, while Paterson took a more romanticised view. Henry Lawson, the voice of the Australian bush. Henry Lawson is one of Australia's most celebrated writers, renowned for his vivid depictions of life in the Australian bush and his ability to capture the spirit of the nation during its formative years. As a poet, short story writer, and journalist, Lawson's work reflects the struggles, resilience, and humour of ordinary Australians, particularly those living in rural and outback areas. His writing is deeply rooted in the Australian experience, making him a cornerstone of the country's literary heritage. His childhood had its issues. Lawson was born in poverty. His parents' union was extremely unhappy, and later, his own partial deafness isolated him from his peers and deepened his sensitivity to the world around him. Lawson was born on the 17th of June, 1867, in a tent, in Grenfell, New South Wales. Henry Archibald Hertzberg Lawson grew up in a family marked by hardship and instability. His father, Niels Hertzberg Lawson, was a Norwegian-born miner. Niels Lawson went to sea at 21 and arrived in Melbourne in 1855 to join the gold rush, along with partner William Henry John Slee. Henry's mother, Louisa Lawson, 1848–1920, was a strong-willed feminist and writer who played a significant role in shaping Henry's literary aspirations. Lawson's parents first met at the goldfields of Piper Clay, now known as Urundee, near Mudgee. Niels and Louisa Albury married on the 7th of July, 1866. At the time of their marriage, Niels was 32 years old, while Louisa was just 18. When Henry was born, the family decided to anglicise their surname, and Niels became Peter Lawson, marking a shift in their identity as they settled into their new life in Australia. Lawson began his education at Urundee on the 2nd of October, 1876, but around this time, he suffered from an ear infection that left him with partial deafness. By the age of 14, he had lost his hearing entirely. Despite this challenge, his schoolmaster, John Tierney, showed great kindness and did everything he could to support Lawson, who was naturally shy and introverted. Later, Lawson attended a Catholic school in Mudgee, New South Wales, located about 8 kilometres away. There, his teacher, Mr. Kevan, introduced him to the world of poetry, sparking a lifelong passion for literature. Lawson was an avid reader, drawn to the works of Charles Dickens, Frederick Marryat, and Australian authors such as Marcus Clarke, whose novel For the Term of His Natural Life 1874 captivated him, and Rolf Boldrewood's Robbery Under Arms, 1882. An aunt also gifted him a volume by American writer Bret Harte, further fueling his love for storytelling. Lawson found solace in literature. Reading became a cornerstone of Lawson's education, as his deafness made traditional classroom learning difficult. Through books, he found not only knowledge but also an escape and a way to connect with the world beyond his immediate surroundings. By his late teens, Lawson had begun writing poetry and short stories, often drawing inspiration from the harsh realities of bush life and the struggles of working-class Australians. 1883 found Henry working on building jobs with his father, but his mother had moved to Sydney and Lawson went to live with her at her request. At this time, Louisa was living with Henry's sister and brother. Lawson would work during the day and studying at night for his matriculation in the hopes of receiving a university education. However, unfortunately, he failed his exams. Henry Lawson's first published poem, A Song of the Republic, appeared in the Bulletin on the 1st of October, 1887. Inspired by his mother's Republican connections and their influence, the poem reflected his early engagement with themes of national identity and social justice. This debut was soon followed by two more poems, The Wreck of the Derry Castle and Golden Goalie, which further established Lawson as a rising voice in Australian literature. Lawson's literary career took off in the 1890s, a period often referred to as the Bulletin era due to the influence of the Bulletin magazine, which published much of his early work. Under the mentorship of J.F. Archibald, the magazine's editor, Lawson honed his craft and gained a national audience. His writing resonated with Australians because it reflected their lived experiences, focusing on themes such as isolation, hardship, mateship, and the resilience of the human spirit. In 1892, the Bulletin paid for an inland trip where he experienced the harsh realities of drought-affected New South Wales. He also worked as a roustabout in the woolshed at Toral Station. This became a source for many of his stories in subsequent years. The journalist Bruce Elder described Lawson's journey between Hungerford and Book as the most important trek in Australian literary history. This iconic journey shaped Lawson's understanding of the harsh realities of bush life, which was so far removed from the romantic idyll of brave horsemen and beautiful scenery depicted in the poetry of Banjo Paterson. It also deeply influenced his writing, allowing him to capture the essence of the Australian outback with unparalleled authenticity. Elder's remark underscores the profound impact this experience had on Lawson's work and its enduring significance in the nation's literary heritage. Lawson's most acclaimed prose collection, While the Billy Boils, was published in 1896 and stands as a landmark in Australian literature. In this work, Lawson further challenged the romanticised portrayals of bush life popularised by his contemporary, Banjo Paterson, and others. Through his stark, unflinching realism, Lawson captured the gritty, often harsh realities of the Australian outback and the lives of its inhabitants. The collection not only solidified his reputation as a master storyteller but also redefined Australian realism, offering a more authentic and nuanced perspective of the bush that resonated deeply with readers and critics alike. Lawson's work often highlighted the loneliness, poverty, and struggles of bush life, earning him a reputation as a realist and a voice for the marginalised. One of Lawson's most famous works, The Drover's Wife, exemplifies his ability to capture the stark realities of bush life. The story portrays the stoic endurance of a woman left alone to care for her children in the harsh outback, embodying the strength and determination of rural Australians. Similarly, poems like The Bush Undertaker and Up the Country blend humour and pathos, offering a poignant yet unsentimental view of the bush. Lawson's emphasis on mateship, a concept of loyalty and solidarity among friends, became a cornerstone of Australian culture. This theme is evident in works like The Union Buries Its Dead, where Lawson explores the bonds forged in adversity. His writing also reflected the egalitarian ethos of the time, challenging social hierarchies and advocating for the dignity of the working class. Henry Lawson's work played a crucial role in shaping Australia's national identity. At a time when the country was transitioning from a collection of British colonies to a federated nation, Lawson's stories and poems helped Australians see themselves as distinct from their colonial roots. His focus on the bush and its inhabitants celebrated the resilience and resourcefulness of ordinary people, qualities that came to define the Australian character. In 1890, Lawson began a relationship with Mary Gilmore, a fellow writer and intellectual. Gilmore later wrote about their unofficial engagement and Lawson's desire to marry her, but their relationship ultimately faltered due to his frequent absences from Sydney. The story of their romance is dramatised in Anne Brooksbank's play All My Love, which explores the complexities of their connection. In 1896, Lawson married Bertha Brett Jr., the daughter of Bertha Brett, a well-known socialist. However, their marriage was deeply troubled and ended in significant unhappiness. Bertha eventually filed for divorce, and in her affidavit, she detailed the hardships she endured during their time together. She stated, quote, "My husband has during 3 years and upwards been a habitual drunkard and habitually been guilty of cruelty towards me. My affidavit consists of the acts and matters following. That my husband during the last 3 years struck me in the face and about the body and blacked my eye and hit me with a bottle and attempted to stab me and pulled me out of bed when I was ill and purposely made a noise in my room when I was ill and pulled my hair and repeatedly used abusive and insulting language to me and was guilty of divers other acts of cruelty to me whereby my health and safety are endangered." Unquote. A judicial separation was granted in June 1903, formally ending their marriage. Lawson and Bertha had 2 children together, a son named Jim or Joseph, and a daughter named Bertha. The breakdown of their marriage marked a tragic chapter in Lawson's life, which was further compounded by his struggles with alcoholism and mental health. It was at this time that Lawson rented a room at Mrs. Isabel Bias Coffee Palace in North Sydney, marking the start of a 20-year friendship between the two. Despite being celebrated as one of Australia's most prominent writers, Lawson battled severe depression and chronic poverty. His financial struggles were exacerbated by unfavorable royalty deals with publishers, leaving him with little income. To make matters worse, his ex-wife frequently reported him for failing to pay child maintenance, further complicating his already precarious situation. Between 1905 and 1909, Lawson was imprisoned 7 times at Darlinghurst Gaol for offences including drunkenness, desertion of his wife and children, and non-payment of child support. His total time behind bars amounted to 159 days. During one of these incarcerations, he was assigned the prison number 103, which inspired his haunting poem of the same name. Published in 1908, the poem vividly captures the despair and degradation of his prison experience, reflecting the depths of his personal struggles during this dark period of his life. His struggles with alcoholism and mental illness often overshadowed his achievements. At times Lawson was destitute. Nevertheless, Lawson's legacy endures. His works continue to be studied and celebrated for their insight into the Australian experience. Alongside Banjo Paterson, Lawson is often credited with defining the Australian literary tradition, with their contrasting styles, Lawson's realism versus Paterson's romanticism, representing two sides of the national psyche. Henry died of a cerebral hemorrhage in 1922 at Mrs. Isabel Bias' residence in Abbotsford. He was given a state funeral. Henry Lawson's contribution to Australian literature and culture cannot be overstated. Through his poetry and prose, he gave voice to the struggles and triumphs of ordinary Australians, capturing the essence of the bush and the spirit of a young nation. His work remains a testament to the resilience, humour, and humanity of the Australian people, ensuring his place as one of the country's most enduring and beloved writers. Lawson's legacy is not just in the stories he told but in the way he helped Australians understand themselves and their place in the world. A bronze statue honouring Henry Lawson stands in the Domain, Sydney, depicting him alongside a swagman, a dog, and a fence post, elements that reflect the themes and imagery of his writing. This memorial pays tribute to his enduring legacy as one of Australia's most iconic literary figures. Lawson's influence has also been celebrated on numerous postage stamps, highlighting his significance in Australian culture. In 1966, when Australia transitioned to decimal currency, Lawson was featured on the first paper $10 note. The design included scenes from the town of Gulgong in New South Wales, a place closely associated with his life and work. This note was later replaced by a polymer note in 1993. Today, Lawson's legacy continues to be celebrated through annual festivals in the New South Wales towns of Gulgong and Grenfell. The Grenfell Festival, in particular, includes a literary competition, further cementing Lawson's role as a source of inspiration for writers and readers alike. These events keep his memory alive and honour his contributions to Australian literature and identity. Thank you so very much for joining me today to explore the life of Henry Lawson. Please come back and join us again when we post another story from the pages of the Convict Diaries.